All right. Well, we've got a few more people coming on. I can see people arriving. Good afternoon. Once again, my name is Gethin Fisher. I'm the General Manager here at BWD in Sydney. We're looking out onto a rather grey and miserable George Street this afternoon, but hopefully we'll have a good time for the next sort of 45 minutes or so. Sat to my left is our Design Director, Chinyi.
Hi everyone, good afternoon.
Just before we get started, and whilst there's still people trying to get onto the webinar, I'll just plug some of the other things we've got going on in the agency at the moment. Some of you were lucky enough to dial into our webinar a couple of weeks ago with Chris Chatfield, our brand director, and Chris and I were talking about updating brands and when a good time is to undertake that initiative. It was a very successful webinar. We had lots of feedback from it, so thank you to everybody that did dial in. And we've now released the survey. We've built an online survey for anybody that's thinking about updating their brand. And so basically there's a series of questions to help you make that decision. So if that's something you're currently considering, you can click the link on screen or give us a call after this. And secondly, we've just released the latest training course that we're offering. It's called Pitch Perfect, and it's all about how to present yourself well, whether in digital ways or face-to-face. We'll be covering off both personal presentation as well as some technical tips for how to put together a good pitch deck and proposal. So if you're interested in that, and I think it's very relevant to today's topic, then drop me a line after this webinar. But that is not why you're here, I don't think. You're here to talk about what's happening in China right now, and Chinyi and I were fortunate to spend 10 days up in China.
Yes, 10 days.
Last month, we got to know each other very well.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Just in time as well, we're together.
It was, we bonded. Over the next sort of 40 minutes or so, we're going to share with you some of the things we saw and experienced up there, as well as some of the research we've undertaken for a few of our clients, and basically to describe what we think is happening in China right now and into the future. This particular picture is a curious one, I acknowledge that, and it comes from an art gallery we visited in the M20 precinct in Shanghai. And what I like this picture was it shows a level of self-awareness and humor that I wasn't expecting to encounter on my latest trip to China. And obviously everyone is concerned about what you might end up eating while you're there, and I think this particular installation lampoons that idea, so it was a fun and informing exhibition. Alright, so what are we going to be talking about? So basically there are three sections to today's webinar. To begin with, we're going to look at some cultural traits, some of the historical or cultural or religious context that you need to consider when talking to Chinese individuals and wider audiences. And then the main section will be looking at how this comes to life in marketing and communication. So we've gathered together examples from all sorts of different industries, from health to food, what we got? We've got tourism, yeah, all sorts of different things in there. Education. Yeah. Thank you, James. So hopefully everybody that's on the call will get to see something from their industry, and we'll pick up some useful tips there. And then we've just taken a look at a couple of different trends that we think will extend out into the future. We'll probably be wrong, but we've tried, and hopefully that'll give you some inspiration to give some of those things a crack. Yes, and I reckon we'll take about 45 minutes. There'll also be a couple of handouts as we go, and you're also free to ask any questions via the chat function at the bottom of your GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get into it. So it can be intimidating at first talking to a new audience, particularly when if you don't have any personal connection or any previous experience in talking to them. But the first thing I would say is, so long as you act with respect and thoughtfulness, you're probably going to go all right. And what we're sharing with you today is some of the advice and tools that we've given our clients and that we've seen in market. They're not hard and fast rules, they're just a guide, and of course there are always exceptions to these sorts of things, but let's have a look at a few of those first few tips. So tip number one is around understanding each other's common goals, and for me this is about the idea of interconnectedness. I think a lot of Eastern philosophies and cultures have got a greater sense of the harmony in which we as humans live with nature, and you see this in all sorts of different ways and in different beliefs. Chunyi often likes to cite this example from his art studies, where on the left you have a picture of a deer in the forest, and you get a sense of the environment in which that deer lives in and the harmony in which they live in. Whereas on the right is a picture from a Western artist which focuses on the strength and beauty of that animal and its kind of, the individual importance of that.
Yeah, but exactly, that's what Ketan said. So if we look at the traditional painting or traditional art, especially for the Chinese brushstroke painting, so it's a lot of the subject matters. It could be subject matter, it could be the boat, it could be the people that's like related with the surrounding environments or natures, and how this bring out the harmonies natures. And in terms of the Western paintings, you can see that a lot of artists that they pretty much talk about like personal expressions and also the individualistics, that how they create the artwork.
Now, you see that a lot of quite commonly in art and other forms of design, but you also see it in modern day communications. And whilst we were in Shanghai, there was a lot of promotion for a forthcoming movie called The Great Wall, which some of you may be familiar with. And it's a really interesting cross-cultural example, this, in that it's directed by a famous Chinese director.
Yes, the director is called Zhang Yimou. He is could be said number one director in China. He directs the Chinese Olympics opening ceremonies, and also like he did a lot of big movie like Hero for China. For this movie, there's a lot of the actors that included like from Westerner and also famous artists in China as well.
So they've obviously developed this film to gain a larger audience in the Chinese market, but they're using a Western star. I think that's an interesting example in itself, and then also just reflecting on how they've framed the picture here. You can see on the left how Matt Damon isn't as prominent as he is in the picture or the poster on the right, and that he's within the environment in which he's working in. You see this a lot in movies and in other things where the human is shaped by the events that surround them, as opposed to the hero in this instance shaping those events. And it just gives you a different sense of the context and framing that goes on. We did also gather some of the trailers that were happening. I'll just share those with you on screen now. I'll just let you watch the trailer.
We have traveled thousands of miles in search of a weapon more powerful than we've ever known.
Why are you here?
We came to trade.
You lie. You are thieves.
What was that? There are many things you have not seen. The Great Wall. It's the only barrier keeping the world safe. Mother of God. What is it they want? To feed. They've trained all their lives for this war.
So that gives you a sense of how they're promoting it to a Western audience. And I'll contrast that now with the trailer that they're running in China.
I was born into battle. I fought for greed and gods. This is the first war I've seen worth fighting for.
Ooh, scary.
Yeah.
What happens next? So much of the same content there, but a different style of storytelling. You know, you saw on the Chinese trailer that it was a bit slower to get going. It gave you a bit more context. There's a lot less of Matt, and also the copy is talking about how these events are shaping him and his journey. Whereas the first trailer I showed you from for a Western audience was very much about that hero journey and how he'd come to step into that space and set off on that particular path. I think it's quite telling.
Yeah.
But we're going to watch it, right?
Yeah, we're going to watch together.
Yeah. Anybody wants to come with us, they're more than welcome to this Christmas. Now, of course, with all of these sorts of trends, there's always a caveat. And whilst we've talking here about the importance of a collective identity and understanding the harmony of nature, there's also, of course, a drive towards consumerism as well. And there's a million examples to illustrate this, but perhaps the most stark for me anyway was a kind of retail experience we visited in Shanghai, where it was kind of a fusion between an art gallery and a retail space, and it had an exhibition called Baggism. Now, on the surface of it, and when you read the intro, Baggism was supposed to be built upon the protest of John Lennon and Yoko Ono from the 60s, but ultimately this had been twisted into purely a kind of consumer campaign and the importance of bags. So yes, whilst there's a different historical context, there are similarities in how it's being interpreted today. But really, really interesting shopping centre. K10, K20,
K11.
K11,
K11.
K11. That's what it was called. That shopping centre. All right, that was tip one. Building on that, then, our second tip is around thinking macro to micro, and with this one, it's about thinking about the collective first and the individual second. And there are lots of small examples of this happening, just in terms of how addresses are formed, where you start with the area you live in first and then build towards your house. Likewise with surnames and also the formats of dates. And this just shows how in China you put your wider community first and the individual second.
Yeah, that's right.
And in terms of marketing and communication, you see this reflected in lots of campaigns. whilst we were in Shanghai, we saw a lot of Huawei and its battle with Apple to get you to buy their smartphones and devices. And Chinyi picked up on how they were pitching what are basically the same products with the same features in quite different ways.
Yes, when we look at their website within these two brands, and also some of their marketing collaterals, and also some of the visions, I think found it quite interestingly. Like let's say for Huawei, they're talking a lot like connected world and people. And also in their, I watched a speech for this CEO for Huawei. He used this metaphor about ecosystem. The ecosystem between the benefit from the people, plants, and environment, how this all together get benefits. And this is that you can see that how they apply into their brands, products. Like they, for example, they kind of collaborate with and partner with this Leica, and they come up with a mobile phone that is Leica lens, so it's very quality lens. You can see that it's basically the win-win situation from these two partners. Yeah, and in the other way around for the Apple, that we can see that a lot of time they're talking about like how unique of the products, that how great of the function of the product, and also like the personal experience go through the products.
So yeah, very similar products pitched in different ways. One talking about the individual experience, how you get to enjoy the perfection of an Apple product, and Huawei, which is talking about that sense of connectedness that you get by enjoying their brand. Okay, our third tip is about talking their language, and this is not just about getting a good translator or taking your communications into a second language. It's really about showing the necessary respect and deference to your audience, that you're going to go that extra mile to not just translate the language, but also to really understand what it is that they're interested in hearing. And we've had lots of examples of that through our work. This first example, again, has some movie imagery, but it's for a company called Deluxe, who are an enormous post-production company. And basically they were looking to form a relationship with the Wonder Group, who are a big Chinese conglomerate who own lots of movie chains and resorts and half of the Gold Coast these days, I believe. And basically they've been talking to them for a little while, but the feeling was they weren't making much progress in their negotiations, and so they asked us to come back to them with an alternative pitch deck of how they might progress the negotiation forward. And so this is what we came up with, and this presentation was used both in person and was emailed to their prospective client. And some of the things that we advised them to do was firstly to shorten the language, so it became a lot more simplified. And then where we started the proposal, we, rather than sort of talking about who Deluxe were and pushing their brand and their successes onto the audience, they firstly acknowledged why Wonder is such a successful company, and that showed real deference and respect for that audience. I think that was greatly appreciated. We also put the Chinese translation first rather than second, because the people who are reading this are going to want to read that. That's the priority, basically. And then thirdly, we made a clearer structure in terms of how this document should be navigated. And we picked out kind of 3 key messages that they wanted to share, and then structured the rest of the document to follow that. And I think it became a better communication as a result.
Yes. In terms of the design as well, like because they have this very good picture resources, so we use this picture resources as the main idea. And at the same point, it's kind of to show the very beautiful image and the products they have, and what they have done as well for the strategies point of view.
Yeah. So, and this picture-led approach works for obviously entertainment companies, but also property companies and all sorts of other audiences. But you can also have successful communications for industries that don't have so many impressive assets, including the meat industry. So one of our clients at the moment is the Australian Meat Processing Corporation. Hello to Barbara and Stella, if you're listening. And we've worked with them on a number of campaigns, and this particular one was for a delegation of Chinese ministers who were visiting them on an information sharing exercise. And they wanted to showcase what made the Australian meat industry a global leader. And there were lots of things that we did to promote that. We did develop a physical handout, which I will share with you on screen right now, which you are welcome to download and read afterwards. And this was taking some materials that we had already developed, but sort of structuring them in a way that was more accessible for a Chinese audience, that had a kind of bespoke message at the start, but was also kind of visually interesting in terms of its storytelling as well. And this was talking about some of the innovations in their supply chain. And alongside that, we also developed a little intro video, which I'll put up on screen now. And what this talks about is some of the things that make Australian meat interesting.
Sustainability is the critical issue that we have identified in the red meat industry, and we've gone through a process of identifying the 6 key themes that we would need to look at in order to make sure or enable Australia to build the most sustainable red meat industry. 70% of the beef that we produce is sold overseas, and those markets are extremely competitive. And if we lose the battle in those markets, then the red meat industry in Australia will suffer badly. So part of our research is around our technical access to markets, our non-tariff barriers to entry, and we're quite dependent upon the Australian government and the departments to be able to negotiate successful agreements with each of the countries into which we want to sell our product. The trade agreements are an essential part of this sale process. So if we don't have access to those marketplaces, then we'll fail in the sale of our products. So we're going to be spending quite a lot of time on that to ensure that we will be sustainable in the long term. Without access to those markets, then we'll be unsuccessful as a domestic industry. Climate change is a constant for us, and we have commissioned quite a substantial amount of research this year to understand the macroeconomic effects of climate change. We're also having a look at our social license to operate. So we are looking now at the socio-economic impact of the red meat processing industry in the regional centres in which we operate. It's an industry which contributes about 20 billion to the Australian economy. We employ 135,000 people in regional jobs. In Wagga here, the East Cargill plant is a very important employer. The red meat processing industry is a vital ingredient. And I have to say that this location is quintessentially Australia. This is what it's about. I can't imagine what Australia would be like without the red meat processing industry.
So that was a video we produced as a little opening to the talks, and it went down very well. Firstly, just because we'd gone to the effort of making something for them, and there was a great appreciation that we'd done that. But also it reflected a lot of the values that people come to expect from an Australian product, you know, the cleanliness and the purity of the environment in which we're lucky enough to live, and also the world-leading technology that's in place for that particular industry. But it is a very different context to what you'll often find when you're up in China.
Yes, besides we need to look at the right translation, we also, in terms of design, we also need to look at the right tones. So in China, the environment is very different from Australia. So it's much more crowded. Like for instance, the flow of the energy, people is like much more. And the shop could be open 24/7. Neon light signage that on your face straight. So the huge building scale or the public space that need to deal with the crowded people. So all of these factors, it could be affect your the design decision as well. So as a designer, we need to look at different aspects to stand up. It could be we might be not like fighting with the loud, we could be the other way around, like doing quiet way. So another example, like how these environments that affects the design decision or design process is that the space. That we know that China's space, because too crowded, everyone's space is very small. It could be only like 1 feet square meter, like for each person. So on this point, if you compare with the Westerns, like especially Europe, like let's say we talk about German or talk about Switzerland, the space is much more bigger. And you look at the house, they probably most of them they have a space or garden in front of them, so they kind of understand and perception of the space they can quite differently. So from that point, we can see that a lot of design, especially Switzerland, German, they have a very good structures in terms of design, and also they have a lot of space on design as well. So sometimes you can see some of the design in China that you wouldn't be surprised that it'd be too crowded, because in terms of space that they're very small, they're thinking of put everything inside in one layer.
They throw everything at it when it comes to design, because they're used to that hectic environment, and you can either compete with that, or you can go in the other direction and clean out your communication so you give it a greater sense of space and time to give you that alternative perspective. All right, and then our final tip in this opening section is around the idea of guanxi. Am I saying that right? Guanxi.
Yeah, guanxi.
Guanxi, thank you.
Delicious.
Yeah, and basically, guanxi translates as something between your personal relationships and your wider network, both from a business context and also in a personal family context. And in China there seems to be a kind of a greater merging of these worlds. That the difference between personal and professional is far less. And we experienced that for ourselves whilst we were up in China, when we were invited to a full moon party at this lovely residence in quite a nice area of Shanghai. And on initially arriving, it felt like a typical kind of family get together, right? There was a barbecue downstairs, there was a nice spread on the table, some Aussie wine and a few dips, and it was really good.
And the location is quite interesting. So it's kind of housing area, it's kind of bungalow area. Actually, it's a clubhouse.
Yeah,
we found after that.
Yeah, but then as we started to mingle, we discovered that not everybody there was family or indeed friends, and that there was this broader network of people who were there, and some of them were actually there for professional reasons. So even though it was a Sunday night and a celebration of the full moon, there were people who had sponsored the wine and who had provided the meat. There was another guy had his jewelry on sale. You could buy that. Other people who were talking about their products as well that were available. And then post the event, we actually discovered that there was an app developed for this event where all of the sponsors detailed their products and how you could go about buying them. And many of them were indeed different imported products. So yeah, it felt quite natural at the time. It didn't feel like an awkward kind of sales pitch, but
I think it's interesting way how to build all the concept over there as well. Like it's quite common, like you always like attend this dinner or lunch and for most every night. Actually, it's a time like you kind of build out the concept, and also like it's a lot of time that the business detail could be taught in the dinner time.
So the learning was to build some face, to build some trust of each other before you can get down to business, and that takes time, and it takes that personal effort to achieve that. All right, now into the second section, and in this section we're going to talk about how some of these cultural traits are being applied to various marketing and communication campaigns We're going to leap from different industries and different media, so hopefully there's something in there for all of you.
Yes, yeah, for these slides that we will be talking about like the science. In China, science means a lot. Because one, if let's say for like start we looking for the Chinese character could be 50,000 character, and each character have a different meaning. And for instance, this is like one characters, when you join with another character, it could become another meaning, and you join another one, it could be another meaning some more. Like for wood, become forest and large forest. And in terms of number, it's also like very particular in numbers. There's so many numbers that they're good and bad as well. So from here, pretty much just like we got feel like 9 could be long lasting, 6 could be lucky, that kind of stuff. Let me show another example like fortune numbers. Yeah, fortune number 8 is everyone loves this number. If you see someone class like you got 8888, means that he could be paid about few 100,000 just to get this car plate. And you look at the Beijing Olympic opening ceremonies, they choose the 8th of August. Yeah, that's a good number, lucky numbers. If you look at the Apple Store text, price text, end of the price number, they use 8 rather than use 9. And as another example is quite a lot of company, if they got opportunity to tie in with the 8, they will use it. This is at the right top. This is one of the restaurants in Chinatown. Dim sum is pretty good there. To try out.
We're not sponsored by this restaurant,
No.
but yeah, it is. And likewise, when it comes to colour, if you want to play it safe, then you'll see a lot of red and gold in communications because they have very positive connotations. And Chinyi, you built in a lot of symbolism into these designs. Right?
Yeah. This is one of the clients called Bright Fruits. It's the second biggest fruit company in China, and they buy a lot of company in Australia as well. So what we do for this project is to create the cover for the budget book every year. It's financial. It could be quite boring financial, but we can make it quite interesting way, like in the way covers, and also like in terms of the figures, could be like doing diagram, that kind of all the stuff. Let's come back to the cover. That's the concept. We basically based on the zodiacs, Chinese zodiac, 12 animals. So each year to represent each year. And in the way of how we use these traditional elements, but we make it like very contemporary and modern slopes.
Yeah. Now, they're beautiful pieces of work that we produce each year for them. We're very proud to be working with them. Hello to Jeff and Wayne and Pedro if you're on the call. Now, having said that red and yellow red and gold are the safest colours, you again in modern China see all sorts of different things happening. And whilst we were up in Shanghai, we saw a lot of vibrant colours, particularly some neon yellows happening around the different places. And in particular, we really like this retail store that was called Pineapple. And the idea here is a strange one, but they are, on the surface, it looks like a bookstore, but in reality, it's a bakery. And basically what they sell is a pineapple cake or pineapple biscuit.
And they got food variety as well.
Yeah. That when you place your order, you receive it in this beautiful package that looks like a bag of books.
Yeah.
It's random, but it's amazing, and the cakes are quite nice. But it's a really interesting format and something that maybe we'll see coming to Australia soon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think in terms of creative, it's kind of quite interesting. It's not really straight connected, but it's kind of quite interesting how they present it. Yeah. Just give you the idea like how this popular is like in the middle of the package here. This is like people that order online and then prepare to delivery outside.
All right, point 6 is around branding, and this is an area that you have to consider very carefully before diving into a new marketplace. And there's lots of examples of companies that have got their brands or their product names wrong, and sometimes to embarrassing or humorous ends. We've picked out 3 that we think did a good job because they carefully thought about the symbolism and meaning of their name and their mark.
Yeah, exactly. Like in terms of the branding, it's like in terms of name, like it's really important you get a Chinese name, and it's not only the sounds that similar with the English name, but also the meaning is very important. So as the first one, Coca-Cola, the Chinese sound is like Coca-Cola. Its meaning is like taste good and happiness. So the meaning is really like tied into the brand's strategy as well. The second one is IKEA. As the sound is like for Chinese IKEA. I mean IKEA, 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 IKEA. It's kind of quite similar the sound. Yeah, and the meaning is basically is like a simply house furniture. I think it's perfect like how they join it together. Yeah. The third one is KFC. Maybe you can want to give some like first expression when you see this logo.
Yeah. So we were in Xiamen, just wandering the main high street, and we came across our first KFC, and we saw the Colonel had a bit of a makeover and had basically become an emoticon. But it seemed to be a very popular outlet, that there were lots of particularly young kids in store that were enjoying the secret herbs and spices, but they'd given it a very contemporary, youthful kind of makeover. And yeah, I just thought it was kind of fresh and funny and exciting way of interpreting their brand for a new audience.
Yeah, totally not expected how they. I mean, like in a way, like to make it localized how it look like.
It was good. And how? It was very good.
Yeah,
And how?
very good.
Yeah, thanks, man. Having said that, you of course still want to remain authentic. So whilst you want to be conscious of your audience and be respectful of their local customs, you also want to remain authentic to your heritage and your roots, and that's always a fine line that is difficult to traverse at times. And we experienced this in a few different campaigns. This first one is a shopper marketing campaign that we produced for a New Zealand client of ours who produce Manuka honey, which is a very popular and a highly prized product amongst Chinese audiences. And this particular campaign was around Chinese New Year last year, when they were looking to target predominantly the Daigou audience, who were purchasing onshore here in Australia and shipping it back to their friends and family back in China. And throughout this campaign, we were always trying to balance the need to prove the provenance of this product, but also show its relevance to its new audience. And the things we were wrestling with, were the packaging. So the packaging remained purely in English. We didn't change that in any way, because that proved that it had come from overseas. We'd also sort of used the Pure New Zealand logo to prove its provenance. But then in terms of the campaign headline and the look of the piece, we were just trying to show some acknowledgement of the time of year and the culture.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in terms of designs that are for designer always looking for opportunity how to tie into their brand. I think this is a kind of good example that we found something really good on to get balance for their marketing collateral. Basically, this is the Chinese name for the brand. The end of the word is Kang. It means healthy. It is like we're thinking about, because this product, they try to show that it's kind of healthy product. So we use this symbol or Chinese characters to use it as a main design element. And we not just only like use this as a main element. Actually, it's related with Chinese New Year as well. For Chinese New Year, people would like to put a nice word in their house, like for example, like prosperity. They're like, or Chinese New Year, that kind of work in the house. So based on that kind of idea, we put it as an advertisement.
Likewise, and this isn't one of our pieces, this is a screen grab from a website from the Victorian Tourism Board that was encouraging people to come and visit Melbourne. I think I took the screen grab maybe two or 3 months ago. And why I think it's an interesting example of how you obviously stay true to who you are and promote your origins. They have tailored their content in a number of interesting ways for their Chinese audience. So The shot on the right here is obviously the English language version of the site. And all I've done is change the language over to simplified Chinese, and it's delivered a sort of different user experience. And there's a few interesting calls they've made here. Firstly, they've made this banner image a lot bigger. And when we reflect back on the first tip that we were talking about, the context and the environment in which we live, you can maybe sort of connect that idea to the fact they've cropped this image differently for the Chinese one. Secondly, on a more practical level, they've gone for this slightly different build at the bottom here, where the social media feed is a lot more prominent. And as many of you will already know, the importance and influence of social media and the people's opinions on there is far greater in China than it is here in the West. And so they made a call that they want to promote some of the comments that are coming through from people who've already enjoyed visiting Melbourne. So I think that's an interesting decision they've made there. And of course, they've also been curating their content differently, and with the political sensitivities around Ai Weiwei, they've obviously chosen not to feature his exhibition on the homepage. So yeah, so some interesting adjustments to the UX when they've switched languages and audiences there. Likewise, within the education sector, there's lots of really interesting work going on trying to attract Chinese students and donors to Australia. I was lucky enough to attend a talk from the University of Tasmania recently, where they were talking about their efforts in China, and yeah, they've developed a bespoke website for their Chinese efforts. It's hosted in China. It's got a .cn URL, which makes it that much easier to access and visit from within mainland China. And they made lots of other interesting decisions in terms of the prominence of their social feeds and the networks that they're in, as well as the photography that they've chosen. So yeah, you can see a lot of people thinking carefully about that UX when it comes to talking to a different audience. Jumping now to another sector which we're quite familiar with. In working with a few food clients, we came across this business-to-business brand. They sell meat to different exporters, and we really liked what these guys have been doing. You can see some of the similar themes that we brought out in the AMPC campaign in terms of, you know, promoting the environment in which we're all lucky enough to live in, and giving their site a nice, clean, epic scale. But then in terms of some of the other media they've been employing, and they've been doing a lot of events and banquets to get people trialing the product for the first time. And I just thought this was a clever little tactic down here, where the placemats they had for their banquet were enable people to take a photo and make sure they get the branding in the picture when they finish. So again, just shows a level of thought and understanding of their audience when it comes to the campaign that's going on there, and I'm sure you can come up with similar ones for your area of business.
All right, this is point 8. Basically, this is the last point for the creative sections. So this point we were talking about like giving cultures. Giving culture is one of the important culture in China. People would like to give, especially the festival time. Like for instance, Chinese New Year, people would like to give some present to relative, or also the red package. Red package, basically they got some money there and then they give to, especially for the relative younger people. Or the autumn festival, like either friends will buy the moon cake and then just give to the friends to celebrate the festive together. So from this point, like if you look at WeChat's getting a bit touched a little bit more in the transactions. So here I just touch a little bit like WeChat also got this function about this repackage. So I found it very interestingly how this repackage basically like is with the real money, but this one in digital way, you send the money in digital way. My friend, put me in the group that's a WeChat group, and the group probably about 100, 200 people. So I found out that a lot of people use these functions that they're giving, like sending this with a package envelope to someone. And sometimes it's just not only the celebrations or money. Sometimes it's about the encouraging thank you or sending love to people. I think that's kind of quite interesting how digitals would make a difference. Yeah. And this is another project that we worked for the Bright Foods. Just now we worked another one here, the one. So this is basically a master plan, strategy master plan for the it is for the board director in China. So the idea is that we would like to tie in with this ceremony idea. So we come up with the package with very beautiful wrap with the packaging and varnish like finishing from the packaging. So this to show the respect and exclusive kind of the way like yeah.
So it could have been quite
Yeah.
a plain presentation document, but we made it a bit more of a kind of ceremonial gift to the board to say, please accept this plan, and the efforts that had gone into it were very much appreciated, and it showed again a deference and a respect for the people that we were talking to.
Yeah.
All right, and the final section then, just to wrap up today's webinar. We've just taken a couple of trends that we've seen happening both in Shanghai and also through our research that we've been undertaking recently. And the first is one that I'm sure we're all conscious of, and the sort of development of various social media platforms in China. And certainly my personal experience from visiting there recently was everybody was in WeChat. And the people live and spend their entire life in there. The functions that this app have got are incredible, and you can book a karaoke room, or you can order a taxi, or
you can buy the waters.
You can do person-to-person transactions. It's an incredible application, and there's all sorts of other ones that people are using as well. And I guess what it made me appreciate was that in some ways I think the social platforms in China were actually more advanced and a greater functionality than some of the ones we're using.
I think sometimes it's not only the functionality. I think it's like how the society like apply this function into their everyday life.
Agree. Do it. Yes. So to give you a couple of examples, this was a beautiful infographic that we came across in WeChat that was promoting a shopping mall, and I think creatively it's quite interesting and unusual.
I think there's an interesting like example is that how social media they can apply this advertising stuff like into their social media, and then they use a very personal touch that's not only selling product, that kind of product that related to their life as well.
Yeah, and the colours are quite interesting as well, using a lot of black and white there. There's also lots of campaigns that go from online to offline. This is actually an example from Korea that one of our social media people, Ming, found for us, where they were utilizing the shake function in WeChat to deliver in-store promotions and discounts to people that were shopping in this particular sale. So it's a real nice technological integration there when they go from offline to in-store. And then the final tip is around this idea of cultural appropriation. And as we all know, China is a hugely influential economic powerhouse already, but I think in large part we still look to the US and the UK for our cultural cues and trends. But I suspect that in the years ahead we'll start to see more of these things coming out of China and the East. And an example from my own experience was whilst I was in Shanghai, I bought 3 pairs of trainers. I apologise to my wife when I get back. But all of them were Chinese brands, including Li Ning. And at the moment, I sort of felt that their brand and their retail experience was heavily influenced by Nike and other American brands. But I don't doubt that in the 5-10 years to come, they will grow in confidence and grow in importance and start to have a clearer sense of identity and will become more aspirational. And I think, you know, a clear signpost that China has become the dominant cultural force will be when your teenage children come to you and ask for a Chinese brand of trainer instead of an American one.
Yeah, yes. For me as well, like I kind of feel that kind of thing as well. Like last time I'm in China is in Shanghai is about 10 years ago, and then this time I come back and I can see a lot of local products. They're doing very well. The quality is good as well, and then there's a lot of people getting to buy the product too. Yeah.
So just to wrap up, I think as you will hear a lot around if you engage in this realm of commerce, China is a growing economy that's evolving very quickly, but it has a great energy about it. You know, Shanghai felt like a very vibrant, exciting and interesting place to visit, and I believe many of the other larger cities are the same. And so, yeah, I would encourage anybody that's thinking of taking their product into China to have a go and to not be fearful of what they might encounter, and it is becoming easier to trade. We've made some good connections up there, and if anybody needs any introductions either to commerce bodies or local partners, then do get in touch with us. But it's a really exciting space to be working in, and we're very grateful to be doing that, and I'm very grateful to have Junyi and some of our other staff available to help us develop these communications. So, in short, I think if McDonald's and Apple and KFC are prepared to adapt their brands for a local market, then everybody else can do as well.
Yeah, that's one of our breakfasts over there in McDonald's. We test it out. I have a Chinese version. I got porridge, a soy sauce, and this kind of Asian dawn sticks for my breakfast.
Yeah.
And got the other way.
I had an egg McMuffin. Yes, I'm sorry. All right, so thank you for your time. I hope you found it useful. Do get in touch if you have any questions. And we'll see you soon. Okay.
Thank you so much.
谢谢，再见。
谢谢，再见。
再见，再见。